93%, like according to the research we were diving into today, 93% of your financial decisions happen before you even, calculate a single number.
Yeah, which is just a wild statistic.
Right. I mean, you think you're using a spreadsheet. You think you're looking at the money coming in, looking at the money going out, and making a rational choice based on math. But your brain is actually fighting this ancient survival mechanism.
It is the ultimate paradox of adulthood, really.
Yeah.
As a society, we treat money as this purely mathematical entity, right? Like it is just addition, subtraction, compound interest.
Just numbers on a screen.
Exactly. It is supposed to be incredibly logical. But to the human brain, money is not math. Money is basically an emotional survival mechanism.
And that just explains so much. I mean, it explains why incredibly smart, capable people who run corporate departments, manage massive projects, solve complex engineering problems every single day, suddenly make terrible, impulsive decisions the absolute second their own personal money is involved.
Right. Their logic just evaporates.
Yes. So, our mission for this deep dive today is to completely reframe how we think about personal finance. We're looking at psychological research from Stanford, Harvard, Northwestern, the APA, alongside some really fascinating real-world case studies.
It's a fantastic stack of sources.
It really is. So if 93% of the decision is already made before I even look at a price tag, what is actually happening in my head? Because, I like to think I'm being logical.
Well, to understand that, we kind of have to strip away the spreadsheet entirely and look at the brain's alarm system, specifically the amygdala.
The primitive part, right?
Exactly. This is the primitive part of your brain that evolved over millions of years for one primary purpose, which is to keep you safe from physical threats.
Like a predator.
Right. But the catch is, the human brain just hasn't evolved fast enough to differentiate between a modern financial threat and a prehistoric physical one.
Wait, so you're saying my brain can't tell the difference?
No, your amygdala literally cannot tell the difference between a past due electric bill and an actual physical predator. It processes a threat to your financial security exactly the same way it treats a threat to your physical safety.
Hold on. You're saying if I get, an unexpected tax bill in the mail, my brain biologically reacts as if a literal bear just walked into my living room?
Precisely. A bear in the living room. And when that alarm fires, your biology completely takes over. It's a full-on physiological hijack.
Wow. What does that actually look like in the body?
Well, blood flow literally shifts. Your body reroutes oxygen and glucose away from the prefrontal cortex. Now, your prefrontal cortex is the evolutionary newer part of your brain right behind your forehead.
The part responsible for planning.
Yes, planning, patience, impulse control, rational decision-making. But in a moment of perceived threat, your body basically decides that planning for retirement is completely useless if you're about to be eaten.
That makes perfect sense when you put it like that.
Yeah, so it shuts down the logic center and floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol, just rerouting all your resources straight to survival mode.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy for you listening. Trying to stick to a strict logical budget while you are stressed about money is essentially like trying to solve a Sudoku puzzle while running from a bear.
That is the perfect way to look at it.
I mean, of course your logic fails. You're running from a bear.
Exactly. And I love that analogy because it really removes the blame. It is not a character flaw. It is not a lack of discipline. It is literally just biology overriding logic in a moment of perceived danger.
Which is a huge relief to hear, honestly.
It is. And there is a fascinating 2018 study that perfectly illustrates this mechanism. It found that just thinking about a bill you cannot pay activates the exact same neural pathways in the brain as experiencing physical pain.
Physical pain, just from thinking about a concept.
Yes, actual physical pain.
Yeah.
Your brain is generating a real, visceral pain response to a conceptual threat. And goes further.
So much further.
Well, Harvard researchers studying the psychology of scarcity found that this state of financial stress temporarily reduces your cognitive bandwidth.
Like it makes it harder to think.
Exactly. And they measured this reduction. It impairs your fluid intelligence and executive control in a way that is literally comparable to losing a full night of sleep.
That is staggering. I mean, if you lose a full night of sleep, you don't expect yourself to make brilliant, high-level strategic decisions the next day. You give yourself grace.
Right. You just try to get through the day.
Yeah, you just survive. Yet, we expect ourselves to make perfect financial choices while carrying that exact same level of cognitive impairment.
Right, because we falsely believe we're just doing math. But since we know the body reacts to financial stress like a physical attack, We have to look at the triggers.
Yeah, so what are the specific emotional triggers that are actually setting off that alarm system? Like, why do I make a perfectly rational choice at the grocery store on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, I completely blow my budget on something I don't even need?
It really comes down to three main emotions that act like ghosts haunting our personal finances. We're talking about fear, guilt, and shame.
Okay, let's break those down.
Well, they operate in very different ways. Fear is the anticipation. It's that racing heart, that tightness in your chest before you even open your banking app.
Oh, I have definitely felt that. And guilt?
Guilt is the aftermath. That is the regret you feel after making an impulse buy. Dude, the feeling, it feels great for the 10 minutes you're checking out online.
Oh, yeah, the dopamine rush.
Right, the rush. But then you feel this sinking pit in your stomach for the rest of the day.
Because guilt is the feeling of, like, I did a bad thing. But the deepest one, the one that really seems to do the most neurological damage according to the sources, is shame.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is how shame behaves entirely differently than fear or guilt in the brain.
How so?
Well, fear is about an external threat. Guilt is about an action. But shame is entirely internal, and it's tied to your identity.
Ah, so it's not just what you did, it's who you are.
Exactly. Shame is the belief that your struggle with money dictates your self-worth. It is the catastrophic leap from, I made a bad financial choice,
Yeah.
to, I am a bad person because of my financial choices.
And you can actually hear this in the language people use, can't you? Like, if you listen closely to how people talk about their budgets, they give away this identity shift.
They absolutely do. Psychological research points out that phrases like, I am terrible with money or I will never get ahead are not mere observations.
They're identity statements.
Yes, identity statements. And the human brain treats identity statements as fixed facts about who you are, which makes them incredibly difficult to change.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and a widely cited study out of Northwestern University demonstrated this perfectly. They found that people who were primed to feel shame about a past purchase actually made significantly worse financial decisions immediately afterward.
Hold on, let me stop you right there. Feeling ashamed of a bad purchase makes you more likely to make another bad purchase right away.
I know, it sounds super counterintuitive.
It seems entirely backwards. Shouldn't shame act as a corrective mechanism? Like, shouldn't feeling bad make you want to do better?
You would think so, logically. But remember, we aren't dealing with logic. Shame triggers that exact same amygdala hijack we talked about earlier.
The bear in the living room.
Right. It narrows your attention. Think of it like tunnel vision in a crisis. It reduces the mental bandwidth available for sound judgment.
So you're cognitively impaired again.
Exactly. And more importantly, it makes you want to escape that painful feeling immediately.
So what do?
You seek a quick dopamine hit to soothe the shame, which often looks like another impulse purchase. Or, on the flip side, it completely paralyzes you, which leads to avoidance.
That perfectly leads into something I really want to dismantle here in this deep dive. The myths we carry about money and behavior.
There's so many of them.
Right, like the idea that avoiding your finances is just laziness.
That is perhaps the most damaging myth out there. Most people who avoid looking at their bank balance or opening their credit card statements are not lazy.
They're just scared.
It's a biological protective response. The nervous system is recognizing a trigger for shame, and it is actively trying to prevent exposure to that feared feeling.
The classic ostrich effect, head in the sand.
Exactly. It's not indifference. It is profound self-protection.
Which means when organizations like the American Institute of CPAs report that a majority of people avoid looking at financial statements when emotionally overwhelmed, they aren't just dealing with a population of unmotivated slackers.
Not at all.
They are dealing with millions of nervous systems that are actively shielding themselves from psychological pain. Which brings up another huge myth, the idea that just making more money will cure this anxiety.
Oh, if only it were that simple. If the anxiety were purely mathematical, a higher salary would completely cure it.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't. Studies tracking lottery winners and incredibly high earners consistently show that the emotional patterns around money persist, regardless of income level.
Wow. So a millionaire can have the exact same money anxiety as someone broke.
Absolutely. The wealthiest people in the world often carry the exact same money shame, the exact same scarcity mindset as someone living paycheck to paycheck.
Because the underlying nervous system response was never actually about the number itself.
Exactly.
So if these emotional responses aren't tied to how much we actually earn, and they are this deeply ingrained in our biology, Where on earth do they come from?
That is the big question.
Like, how early does this get baked into our brains?
This is where it gets deeply psychological. Research suggests that by the age of 7, a child has already absorbed the emotional blueprint their family holds around money.
Wait, age 7? I didn't even have an allowance at 7.
Most kids don't.
I certainly didn't know what a mortgage was or how compound interest worked. How can my entire financial anxiety baseline be set before I even understand basic math?
Because the nervous system doesn't need to understand math to understand safety.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Children are incredibly perceptive emotional sponges. They don't need to read the bank statement. They pick up on the tone of voice when the mail arrives.
Right, the heavy sigh from a parent.
Exactly. They sense the tension at the dinner table. They absorb the hushed arguments in the other room.
And they internalize all of that.
They do.
Yeah.
They internalize that blueprint, associating money with either safety or danger long before they know what a dollar is worth.
And that invisible blueprint hides underneath every raise you are afraid to ask for and every invoice you avoid opening as an adult.
It really does.
And it evolves as we age, doesn't it? Like, if we track this blueprint through the life stages from the sources, it morphs.
It does change shape, yeah.
Like, if you are in your 20s, you are forming your adult identity,
Yeah.
and there is this intense, constant comparison. You're watching friends buy homes or take extravagant trips, and that quietly shapes your self-worth.
Social media makes that so much worse now, too.
Oh, definitely. And then between 28 and 35, you have this convergence of career milestones, serious relationships, and major financial pressures all hitting at once.
Right. The research says self-doubt about money absolutely peaks in these years.
It's a perfect storm of expectations versus reality.
It really is. And then as people transition from 35 to 45, those anxious thinking patterns can feel fixed, almost automatic.
Like they can't change them.
Exactly. For the 45 and older group, a quiet, heavy fear often sets in. It's the fear that it is simply too late to fix their relationship with money, that they are permanently broken.
But the research pushes back hard on that too late idea. There's a fantastic case study in our sources about a man named Michael.
Oh, Michael's story is so illustrative.
It really is. So think about your own hidden reactions to money as we talk about Michael. He's 47 years old, a highly successful small business owner.
On paper, he has completely made it.
Right. He's wealthy. But internally, he felt this crushing wave of secret shame every single time a client payment was even slightly late.
Even just a day late.
Yeah, he carried this panic silently for over a decade because he assumed successful people just didn't feel that way.
Michael's story is a textbook example of what researchers at Stanford call financial trauma.
Which sounds intense.
It does, but it's basically the lasting psychological imprint left by early experiences of scarcity or instability. Michael grew up in a household where money was constantly a source of crisis.
Ah, the age 7 blueprint in action.
Exactly. So at 47, when a client payment was a few days late, his amygdala wasn't reacting to his current, highly successful reality.
It was running an old script.
A 40-year-old script.
Yeah.
His nervous system was reacting as if he were back in that childhood scarcity, facing imminent ruin.
And how did he break that cycle? Because he didn't just earn more money to fix it.
No, earning more wouldn't have worked. He actually had a conversation with a mentor who shared their own history of financial shame.
Wow. Just opening up about it.
Yes, that vulnerability showed Michael his reaction wasn't a reflection of his current success, and more importantly, he wasn't alone.
He realized it wasn't a character flaw.
Right. So he started applying self-compassion, literally speaking to himself the way he would speak to an employee who made a mistake. And the shame just lost its grip on him.
That is amazing.
What Michael experienced is neuroplasticity in action. Neuroscience shows that the brain remains plastic, meaning changeable, at every single age.
This was never too late.
Never. The neural pathways that shape financial behavior can absolutely be rewired. In fact, the most profound mindset shifts often happen after 45, because that is when our clarity about what actually matters in life becomes sharper.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. But to rewire the system, we can't just focus on the past, right? We have to look at the daily inputs.
Yes, the everyday choices.
The everyday saboteurs. If this blueprint is baked in early and neuroplasticity lets us change it, what's triggering it on a day-to-day basis right now?
Well, we look at things that seem totally unrelated to money, like poor sleep.
Which is wild to me. We all know sleep is important, but why does missing an hour of sleep specifically target the financial center of my brain?
It comes back to the prefrontal cortex we discussed earlier. That logic and planning center is an absolute energy hog.
It needs a lot of fuel.
It requires immense amounts of glucose and rest to function properly. When you are sleep deprived, the brain prioritizes basic motor function and survival, and it literally dials down the activity in the prefrontal cortex.
So the logic center goes offline?
Exactly.
Okay.
Poor sleep has been shown to directly reduce impulse control the next day, which research links to a measurable, significant increase in unplanned spending.
So protecting your sleep is quite literally a quiet form of financial protection.
It really is.
And it doesn't stop there. Caffeine and sugar spikes heighten that anxious physiology too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like having a stressful conversation with your partner about a budget right after a sugar crash is going to go terribly.
A complete recipe for disaster.
Because your heart is racing and your cortisol is peaking. It's not a moral failing that you argued. It's literally a nervous system input.
Exactly. And consider the timing of when we interact with our money. Late-night financial decisions are notoriously terrible.
Oh, I am guilty of the midnight online purchase for sure.
We all are. And why? Because by midnight, your prefrontal cortex is naturally fatigued from a full day of decision-making.
It's just tired.
Right. But the emotional centers of your brain, they are still wide awake and carrying relatively more influence.
So a purchase that feels incredibly urgent and necessary at midnight.
Will almost always look completely irrational in the calm light of morning.
Every single time. But the saboteur that really stands out to me right now is the dopamine engineering on our phones.
Oh, yes. That's a huge one.
Every notification about a limited time sale is designed specifically to bypass the slow, thoughtful part of the brain and trigger the amygdala.
They're engineering financial anxiety.
Exactly. And then there is the social media aspect. If constant exposure to curated, wealthy lifestyles makes us feel behind, even when we're financially stable. I mean, are we essentially letting an algorithm dictate our biological sense of safety?
Sadly, we are. Constant micro-comparisons on social media create a state of chronic, low-grade cortisol release.
Just a constant drip of stress.
Right. To your nervous system, this constant feeling of falling behind the tribe mimics actual poverty. It completely drains your motivation.
But we can take control back, right? From the algorithm and from our own emotions through conscious awareness.
We absolutely can.
Which brings us to an incredible case study about a 26-year-old named Jennifer.
This is one of my favorite examples from the deep dive sources.
It's so practical. So think about the last time you bought something you really didn't need late at night. Were you actually just scrolling, or were you feeling something else?
That's the key question.
Jennifer tried this exercise where she wrote a single word beside every purchase she made for a week, just describing how she felt internally before she spent the money.
Such a simple tracking method.
Right, no numbers, just feelings. And by day 4, she noticed nearly every unplanned purchase was tagged with one identical word.
Lonely. That is a profound realization. Psychology notes that spending can temporarily soothe emotional pain by activating reward pathways in the brain.
So it's a Band-Aid.
Yes. It provides a synthetic sense of connection and a quick hit of dopamine. It is a coping mechanism.
But once Jennifer saw the actual emotional mechanism driving her behavior, she started replacing some of those impulses.
She just made a different choice.
Yeah, she just called a friend instead. And her impulse spending dropped noticeably within a month without opening a single spreadsheet.
Which proves the ultimate point we're making here. Knowledge without emotional regulation rarely changes behavior.
But once you regulate the emotion, the behavior naturally follows.
Exactly.
So how do we practically rewire this matrix of financial anxiety?
Well, the first and perhaps most powerful daily step is a biological hack researchers call affect labeling.
Affect labeling, basically naming the feeling before naming the number.
Exactly.
But why does that work biologically? Like, why does saying I am scared change anything?
Because of how the brain routes information. When you put a feeling into words, you activate the language processing center.
Let me guess, that's in the prefrontal cortex.
You guessed it, it's in the prefrontal cortex.
Oh.
Activating this logic center literally sends inhibitory signals down to the amygdala, forcing the alarm system to power down.
So it literally hits the brakes on the panic.
Yes. Behavioral psychology shows that simply naming an emotion measurably reduces its physiological intensity.
That is so cool. Let's put you, the listener, in the shoes of Sarah. Sarah is a 29-year-old in these studies who was so paralyzed by dread She hadn't opened her banking app in 3 solid months.
3 months of total avoidance.
She was letting small overdraft fees snowball into a massive problem purely because she was avoiding it.
The ostrich effect again.
Right. And what broke the cycle for her was talking openly with a coworker who admitted feeling the exact same dread.
Normalizing the feeling.
Yeah, that shattered the myth that talking about money is rude. And it showed Sarah this wasn't a personal, shameful failure.
She realized she wasn't broken.
Exactly. So she started using affect labeling, literally saying out loud, I am feeling anxiety, before opening the app. And within weeks, the avoidance loop was completely broken.
If we connect Sarah's success to the bigger picture, it is all about slowing down the reaction time between the emotional amygdala and the logical prefrontal cortex.
Slowing it down.
Right. Which brings us to another critical practical tool, the 24-hour pause.
Oh, I love this one. Setting a personal dollar limit, say $50, and any non-essential purchase over that amount gets a mandatory 24-hour waiting period.
And it's not about punishing yourself or restricting joy. It's biological.
Yeah.
Think of your amygdala as a speeding car and your prefrontal cortex as the brakes.
Okay.
The 24-hour pause is simply giving your brakes the necessary time to engage before you hit the intersection.
That's a great visual. And David, a 34-year-old in the case studies, tried this for just 1 month.
And look at his results.
Right. He found that roughly half of the purchases he paused on no longer felt urgent or necessary once that initial emotional pull faded.
Half of them.
Half. And the money he effortlessly saved allowed him to pay down a credit card balance he'd been avoiding for an entire year.
It is amazing what just introducing a little bit of friction, a little bit of time, can do to our biology.
It really is. But it's not just internal tools, right? We also have to change our physical environment to support this work.
Environment is absolutely crucial. First, you need to physically separate your phone from your body during any financial task.
Oh, to avoid the notifications.
Exactly. If you are reviewing a budget, put your phone in another room. Removing those notification triggers protects that calm, rational thinking state.
Makes total sense.
Second, create a designated, comfortable physical space for a weekly money check-in.
Now, why does it need to be a weekly ritual? Why not just whenever?
Because unpredictability is the primary cue that makes financial tasks feel threatening to the nervous system.
Oh, so random checks cause anxiety.
Yes. Neuroscience suggests that a predictable ritual in a consistent environment helps the brain associate the task with safety rather than an ambush. It lowers the emotional charge over time.
And it completely removes the chaos. I mean, when you know you are checking your accounts on Sunday mornings, sitting in your favorite chair with a good cup of coffee, you don't have to panic on a random Wednesday afternoon when a thought pops into your head.
Exactly. You can just defer it.
Right. You know you have a designated safe time to handle it. You are stepping back into the driver's seat of your own life.
Precisely. You are also actively reducing the patterns that deepen the anxiety, like harsh self-criticism. We touched on self-compassion with Michael earlier.
Right, the business owner.
Studies definitively show that being harsh with yourself after a spending mistake actually increases future impulsive spending.
Because it stresses you out.
Exactly. Criticism creates stress. Stress triggers the amygdala, and the amygdala seeks a quick dopamine hit to feel better. It just deepens the shame spiral.
So you basically absolutely have to speak to yourself the way you would speak to a good friend who made a mistake.
It's mandatory for change.
I love that. Treating yourself with grace actually yields better, measurable financial returns than punishing yourself.
The ultimate return on investment.
It really is. And it all comes back to the core revelation we started with on this deep dive. If financial behavior was just about math, a simple literacy course would solve everyone's problems instantly.
But it doesn't.
No, because knowledge without emotional regulation completely fails.
It absolutely does. So for you listening, the next time you feel a flash of dread before opening a bill or a spike of panic before checking your balance, I want you to remember that the number on the screen is just data.
Just pixels.
Exactly. It has no moral weight. The dread is just your nervous system trying to protect you based on an outdated script. Your mind isn't broken.
You're just human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can choose to pause, name the feeling, engage the brakes, and remind yourself that your value as a human being is not, and never will be, a reflection of your bank balance.
Separating your net worth from your self-worth. That is the ultimate goal here. And honestly, it's the only way to find actual peace.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, that brings us to a final thought for you to chew on today. We spend so much time, so much energy, and so much stress trying to audit our bank accounts.
Constant auditing.
Right. But what if The most profitable financial investment you make this year is simply auditing the emotional inheritance you received at age 7.